smell that? No, not the bag of poop called Florida State football. The sweet scent of the postseason is upon us, college football fans. In 3 short weeks, we'll be figuring out who will be dancing in the spotlight of the first ever 12-team playoff. Before that, though, we have to invest in more warfare in the middest teams out there. Without further delay, let's take a look at who laid their eggs this week. Despite what's been a down year, the Huskies have only lost 1 game at home. The Bruins, however, have been on a trail of fire, with 3 straight wins over conference opponents. Thus, we were in for another edition of Friday Night Midball. Neither team wanted to win, but someone had to. Someone made the comparison of Ethan Garbers to Dak Prescott. We call that bad karma. Both quarterbacks had their fair share of struggles, though, as Will Rogers still couldn't figure out how to put any air on the football. Hasn't he been in college for like 7 years now? Dear Lord, it's Cam Rising 2.0. While these teams traded lots of drives, neither team had any interest in keeping the ball for long, whether it was in the form of big plays or instantly turning the ball over. But while Rodgers played like a wet sack of tomatoes, Washington carried the run game behind the legs of Jonah Coleman, who outran the entirety of UCLA's team. And when your offensive line is made of glass, it sets you up for failure, especially with the return of Russell Davis II. Rent will be due for the defense never. It was all but solidified once Desmond Williams came in for the Huskies. 'Twas a fun run for the Bruins, but it seems whatever Cinderella run they've had for the past 3 weeks has been poached. Their hopes of bowling are within the hands of their upcoming rivals. As for the Huskies, their worries are put to rest as they've already solidified a spot in the postseason. Alright! Washington's only remaining goals for the regular season is to be the unholy spoiler for the undefeated Ducks. Considering they've been Oregon's kryptonite, there'd be more predictable outcomes. Alright, Arizona, you know how this works. Go ahead and take your L so we can move on and talk about your basketball season. Oh, never mind, carry on then. The Houston offense is a lot like their city, always under construction and never complete. Every attempt to actually try and offense was met with a little thing called no. Like a Jenga tower, they'd start to build something and piece by piece go down the field until someone gets a little too handsy and the tower comes falling down. In other words, Genesis Smith pissed all over every tower they made. Wait until I tell you which 2 players are leading the offense for Arizona. Fafita, McMillan, bread and butter. It's basically just like hitting the same button on the controller over and over again. It's so predictable, but yet there are some teams who are just too potato to stop it. When Tyler Loop nailed a 62-yarder like it was an extra point, it was clear the football gods had chosen their ally. Every endeavor Houston tried afterwards would be all for naught. Makes it easier when every attempt at offense is a complete joke. Zona hangs on by a thread, delaying themselves from the Tuco sound effect. Only took them 5 losses in a row to do it. Cam Skibbity or Josh Huber will provide the flowers for your funeral. Either that or they'll piss on your grave. Houston, we have a problem. I think that's all that needs to be said about that. This game is so predictable and boring. They didn't even bother to try and produce a good-looking broadcast. The power cord at least made it harder to see Northwestern trying to offense. When you watch them play, it becomes clear to everyone why they are investing so much in their stadium renovations. If they are going to get their back blown out each week, they might as well wear that honor with style. Playing in Wrigley Field offers no such thing. It could be argued that the Cubs have put up more points than the Wildcats did. With the return of Carnell Tate, the Buckeyes just existing would be too much for Northwestern to handle. We're talking about the same team that needed overtime to beat the Soilermakers for Lord's sake. Did anyone think they had a chance? While the Nuts per the norm started slow, they exponentially put up the pace as the Wildcats began to dive. They weren't intense or even motivated with their execution, but with the Big Ten, the high-end talent will always make way for the Buckeyes. The Ohio State starters stayed in the game for longer than both crowds did. By the time they were pulled, Robert Fitzgerald had already deleted his Twitter page. He put up as good of a fight as the rest of the team. Northwestern had to win out in order to make the postseason, so unless they have a new quarterback in the storage to replace Jack Luch, expect the expected. Oh wait, they're playing Michigan. Do I have to cover that one? Anyway, the Nuts are now 2 games away from another dance with the Duckies in December. The undefeated Hoosiers are laying out all the cards on the game coming up with you, as 10 straight weeks of Popeyes East isn't enough to impress the playoff committee. The Steers and the Piggies, a long-forgotten rivalry in the college football landscape. So long ago, I'm not even sure if any Texas fans care about it today. Just like how they don't care about scoring. Texas' soft strength of schedule showed its flaws when they face off against a quality defensive line. Although this same thing could be said for Arkansas's offense as well. Both offensive lines were nowhere to be found and were letting linemen run past him like it was a car wash. Taylor Green was forced to use his dual threat ability the entire time as the pass protection was more like pass deflection. As Arkansas began to rally late, the possibility of the Razorbacks pulling off another significant upset didn't seem so far away. But just like with the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight, this result was a complete scam. Quinn Ewers wasn't lighting up the defense, but as the game progressed, he sat patiently, waiting for the Peppa Pigs to cook themselves. As I've said many times before, the Arkansas Razorbacks' ultimate villain is the Arkansas Razorbacks. Pig time has been put on halt until they can go a week without fully collapsing in on themselves. This week has been a complete joy for the Longhorn Nation. Not only did they win the game themselves, but they got to see old Tom Herman get canned from FAU in the same week. Texas now has complete control over the SEC. Everything is under their control as long as they don't piss it away within the next few weeks. How much are you willing to put on that, though? It all depends on whether or not you ironically use the phrase, Texas is back. While SMU and Miami still reign on top of the Tank Conference, these two squads will duke it out for the reign of the third place trophy. Pittsburgh has taken 2 daggers into their season with back-to-back losses after starting out 7-0. What do they get for this? Another dagger. Nate Yarnell would be thrown to the Tigers in order to attempt to remedy the season. Clemson has been dealing with their own demons, but Dabo wants to show the world that he doesn't need the portal to win the big ones. Up until now, it's been a mystery as to how Cade Klubnik is in the running for the Heisman. But Pitt assisted in said narrative by letting him torch them like he himself was Trevor Lawrence. He was doing so well that Garrett Riley actively forgot to run the football, turning Clemson into an air raid offense. He guided Clemson to what looked like was going to be an easy win on the road, but with this style of offense came the usual trend that comes with it, an incompetent defense. Yarnell's little experience mattered very little when he had his fair share of open receivers in the catch-up field. Eventually, Pitt tied the ball game at 17 apiece. What a great game so far. You know what it's missing? Ref ball. Obvious forcible contact on this play made all the fans in the stands big mad when no flag was called. Just the booing was enough for the officials to throw a flag minutes afterwards? What kind of pee-wee hoo-ha is this? Following what was a great episode of ref ball incompetence, Better Call Saul nailed a field goal to put Pitt up by 3. It was at this moment that said doubt about Klubnik being a potential Heisman candidate was swiftly put to bed.
He takes off, running up the middle, first down, inside the 35, he's going to go! Cade Klubnik, touchdown Clemson!
Cade Klubnik really just ran the ball himself for a 50-yard touchdown. Welcome to 2024. Though the efforts of the Panthers are great, your Cinderella run was washed away the moment you got wiped off the earth by the Horsies. All that's left now is for you to consume feces. Said consumption may continue as Louisville awaits next week. Last I checked, they were dominating Stanford, so good luck with that. Clemson gets another good win on the resume ahead of the final stretch of the season. They'll need chaos to occur in the ACC, though, to have a shot at the title. How much chaos? Too much for me to handle. Come in, come all. Step right up and have a go. Can you throw a screen pass to Micah Bernard? Can you only throw a minimum of 3 interceptions in the game? You can? Well, congratulations! Welcome to Utah! As unfortunate as this situation is, this is the situation the Utes have found themselves in. Against Shedeur Sanders of all quarterbacks. Utah may have an army of angry fans, but Colorado has a Travis Hunter. All obey his call. Among their own fans is Pebby Kapam, who is old enough to remember Cam Rising's first year of eligibility. Stat padding in this game was as easy as cutting into paper when Utah is an all-you-can-eat turnover machine. Colorado developing a defense on the field? Deion Sanders building a complete team? They are doing everything Fox was begging for and more in the preseason. Travis Hunter's performance as of recently has not only put the team at the front of the spotlight in the Big 12, but he's potentially passed Genty Ball for the spot of the Heisman Trophy. How the hell did this team lose to Nebraska? Said scenarios of the playoffs have gone from a far-out dream to every sports outlet in the country predicting a first-round bye. The Buffs now await as next week they face off against the Jayhawks of Kansas, who have been having a downright tank season with no good wins to show for it. Just a question though, is Utah still running the Big 12? The only thing that's actually running is the boosters looking for money in case of Kyle Whittingham's buyout. I know I said we wouldn't be covering any Group of 5 games anymore, but a game like this was too significant to ignore. While Navy has had their fair share of ups and downs, including an obliteration at the hands of Notre Dame, they could still salvage the season by beating Tulane and clinching their spot in the AAC championship. However, Tulane has been gathering dubs under the radar and has just found their way into the top 25. While the dreams of Army-Navy for a conference championship were thrilling to think about, they were just too good to be true. Daria Menza made sure of that as he balled out all over the midshipmen. Regardless of whether or not he actually did, he only had to do the bare minimum. Navy's offense must have been deployed early because they certainly aren't wearing any football uniforms recently. Both quarterbacks forgot where and how to throw the ball, like all their powers got sapped from the aliens on Space Jam. I say both because the agony spiked as Blake Horvath got hit with an injury bug. What followed was the absolute dagger of whatever was left for them. While the thrill was fun and exciting, we all knew this wouldn't last forever. Tulane gets an impressive win on the road and now solidifies himself as a bubble team if Genty Ball falters before the end of the season. Army is in front of them, but the Green Wave will be getting their shot against them in December. Tulane at this point might own the state of Louisiana. Despite the 3 losses, the Illini have some of the most quality losses out of any teams in the conference right now. And Minnesota. The Spartans only wish the Jonathan Smith era was going just as fluidly, winning only 1 of the last 6 games. With the offensive line consistently getting swallowed whole, it's no wonder things have been so bad for them. The Illinois defensive front is good, but what the hell? Aiden Childs has already proven he's the man of the future for the Spartans, as he had another decent day through the air. It's a miracle he was even able to make plays with a nanosecond to throw the ball. Luke Altmaier was given much more time to throw the ball, so he was able to make more significant plays. Specifically, fuck it, Pat Bryant down there somewhere. When the defense is getting constantly toasted, it's a working strategy. The Spartans were a victim of the infinite door, always playing from behind with futile attempts to run the door to a lead. Josh McCray would always keep the fighting Burt Bielemas out of upset territory. While the loss does hurt, especially with it being the 6-1 out of the last 7 games, it does create a clear goal for the offseason. The offensive line needs to do like Burt Bielema and add some weight to them pronto. Speaking of Burt, his efforts have landed the Illini back into the top 25 after being absent for several weeks. Even with the disappearance of the Big Ten West, Illinois still somehow manages a decent record every so often. After literally breaking the ACC network last week, Cal has been banished to the CW for their punishment. Syracuse is practically living here as some sort of purgatory. California's gift to the ACC never seems to fade, as you can always rely on one of these teams to fold like paper every week. Cal has managed some momentum with 2 wins in a row, but it's time to return to reality. Kyle McCord is yet to have irritable bowel syndrome again, as he was able to light up Cal's defense with minimal ease. Turns out when you aren't throwing 3 pick sixes in a game, you are more than likely able to win it. The loss to Florida State will continue to haunt Cal as long as their season progresses. In fact, that will probably haunt Justin Wilcox for the rest of his life. The Orange Men ran away with the game early, skedaddling their way to a 20-point lead at half. Fernando Mendoza was never able to maintain a hold on the football in a desperate effort to come back in the game. Like a scooter to the shin, it was yet another agonizing episode of Cal football. Despite doing decent offensively, turnovers in the defense leaving this dimensional plane left the Berkeley squad with nothing but another conference loss. All in? Yeah, all in hell. They're still 1 win away from a bowl game, but knowing them, they're all in on blowing it. Hughes is gifted with playing UConn at the end of the season, and while they're having a decent year, you're better than Wake Forest. Well, a lot of teams better than Wake Forest. USC fans, you don't have any more excuses. Purdue is a complete and utter disaster this year, and yet they still beat you in attendance. It's not even like any of these fans have expectations of what's to come. They all know it's on the way and have zero intention of changing their minds on it. Penn State had to do the minimum to put this game away. Drew Allar and Tyler Warren were an unstoppable duo that the Soilermakers could do nothing to stop. Purdue just wants everything to stop, including their program. It's a testament to how little they care about the football program that Ryan Walters is still the head coach of this team. They've got no passing or running game, no defense, no kicking game, and no coach. They have nothing. They are dead. The only thing that died on the opposing side was the downtown McDonald's that students seem to love. Damn it, there goes Ryan Walters' possible job. The Nittany Lions get another easy W and can breathe with their strength of schedule as long as Illinois doesn't die. Purdue is so unserious about their football program that only now are they putting Ryan Walters on the hot seat. Only took a 9-game losing streak. In an era of strength of schedule comparisons, Notre Dame gets the worst of it. Their schedule is like that of a wet paper bag at Target, and to make matters worse, that MAC loss they took in week 2 continues to haunt them. They'll be nut riding Texas A&M for the rest of the season. If they can win out though, they'll still be in, as simple as that is. Helps a lot when your opposition is beating themselves for you. Anthony Calandria was throwing interceptions like it was an all-you-can-eat turnover buffet. Remember that this is the same guy who beat Pittsburgh on the road. How did he pull that one off? I don't know. Anyway, the stagnation got so bad they decided it was time to bring back the legendary Tony Muskett. While he did play significantly better, this game was so far out of reach it was practically meaningless. Tony Elliott desperately needs an offensive mind, otherwise the stagnation of the offense will only continue to get worse. You'll be sacrificed to the Horsies next week, as they'll need all the wins they can get at this point. Notre Dame's resume continues to grow stronger inch by inch. Nobody's gonna like it when they are in, but if they win out, they'll be there. Nothing in the universe other than Lincoln Riley can stop the eventual first-round blowout they'll take. This game's result already looked decided, as we had some drama before the game even kicked off, specifically that of a quarterback change.
I quit!
Castellanos had quit for being put on the bench and is now looking for other options where he can lead another team to a 6-win season. SMU continues to win, but just like Notre Dame, suffers from a terrible strength of schedule. Nonetheless, they are undefeated in the conference and looking to keep it that way. Kevin Jennings showed why the Horsies are the most feared team from the Tank Conference though, as once again he lit up another defense for score after score. Grayson James filled his role well considering the position he was put into. While SMU kept the lead, the Eagles would not submit to the top of Tank Conference. The Horsies found out real quick that he could also run the ball, giving Boston College a 1-point lead in the third. But with the help of a few more scores, some ref ball, and a huge sack late in the game, SMU was able to keep James away from making a huge upset happen and the Horsies prevailed once again. While it was an unfortunate defeat, the Eagles looked much more competent under James than anywhere else. It could be another UNLV situation where the quarterback quitting was for the better. Bill O'Brien is still 1 win away from a bowl, with his only chances being Pitt's incompetence or putting Matt Brown into retirement. The Horsies will likely cruise their way to the championship for the conference. It's still comical to me how they were a group of 5 team last year, and here they are taking over an entire Power 4 conference. For the first time this season, the football gods have shown kindness on the Florida Gators, as from the depths of the gaping mouth and the injury bug escapes DJ Lagway. As their fourth quarter song would imply, they would not back down from this game against LSU. Speaking of which, the Tigers were on life support when it came to possible playoff and conference championship chances. Since the almighty Marco Wilson shoe thrown before, LSU has not lost to Florida. But the return of Lagway left LSU with more trouble than they thought. Wait a second, Lagway's a dual threat. Well, LSU's f***ed. In case you haven't seen it yet, let me remind you once again, your coach is Brian Kelly. He'd sooner return to Notre Dame than learn how to throw a quarterback spy on the field. Nussmeier tried his best on the field with more than 250 yards, but again, you can only do so much when you've got a defense that doesn't exist. That's pretty much what LSU's defense is against a rushing quarterback. Worst part, they didn't even have to bring out the quarterback run. Florida's receivers are plenty open enough. Elijah Badger had a couple of blocks of rent in that backfield every time they sent him back there. LSU couldn't stop anything Florida did. Thus, it was time to say goodbye to that 6-game win streak. Big Game Brian coming in clutch 2 weeks in a row. To Billy Napier, no less. If I'm LSU, I would be in favor of executing BK's contract immediately. You knew what you were getting though, and these are the fruits of your consequences. But now you've lost the fan base. Lose the locker room too, and you can say goodbye to your job. LSU doesn't play with coaching contracts. Florida gets to take solace in the fact that the Marco Wilson curse is gone. In the process, they are now 1 win away from going bowling this season. This is the character growth the likes of which we've never seen before. The best part? They still get to play Florida State. Hey Louisville, out of curiosity, when did you die? It had to have happened sometime in the past, because whatever I'm watching right now is an imposter. You walk into Death Valley and spank Clemson at home, and then a couple of weeks later, here you are in a struggle fest with one of the worst teams in the Power 5. If there's one thing the ACC is, it's certainly not consistency. The Louisville defensive line was strong through the game, however, I'm not sure what the Cards do during practice, but the defensive backfield must have stayed absent for it. They couldn't guard an infant, much less Ilek Ayoman or anyone else on that Stanford receiving corps. While Louisville was able to run the ball efficiently, Tyler Shuck didn't have anyone other than the likes of Chris Bell and Ja'Cory Brooks who could catch the ball. Louisville kept a lead through the entire game though, as Stanford was always a couple of steps behind. No matter how many big plays the Cards would let up, Stanford would let up another one on their end. The defenses decided they were ineligible to play the day, so it was just a matter of who could score last. It would all come down to this 4th down stand.
Lamson, he's going to go to the air, takes a hit, throws it up, it's caught for a touchdown, Evan Mosley!
Wow, truly astonishing. Getting burnt like that on a 4th and 1 is both a great play call and terrible management on the defense. This was far from the most incompetent thing we'd see today though. Louisville decided taking a Hail Mary shot with over 10 seconds on the clock with the ball game tie was a phenomenal idea. Guess what? It backfired. It blew up in their face so much the entire coaching staff now has 3rd-degree burns. Stanford has yet to win a game at home this season, by the way. Now here comes the rubbing alcohol. An unsportsmanlike conduct that puts the Cards in field goal range. And then an offsides penalty. Okay, that one I added myself for being a waste of my time. Automatic Stanford win.
The kick is up.
I haven't seen a selling job this bad since Mario Cristobal forgot how to take a knee. See this type of tomfoolery under a veteran coach is a major red flag. Everything is a learning experience, but Louisville's season just went from great to horrible. As quickly as an extension was set for Braum, he's back on the hot seat. Stanford's season still sucks, but now it sucks a lot less. The Trees can take solace in the fact that at least they did something in their first year of ACC play. Dear Lord. 2 teams cursed by the football gods meeting on the gridiron is a battle of who can get more bullshit against them. Since Lincoln Riley wasn't about to do anything with the defense, he would make adjustments with the only side of the ball he could control. A quarterback change was made, with Jaden Mayava now taking control of the USC offense. The change wasn't noticeable at first, but with the run game opening up due to the assets he offered, things began to go in their favor. At this point, I'm starting to become convinced that Nebraska is banned from winning in November. They're like Mike Locksley, except somehow far, far worse. Ever since Indiana neutered them, they've been nothing but a joke. Dylan Raiola constantly handed drives to USC's defense, and the Condoms capitalized off of it. Every time the Huskers would get some momentum in their direction, it was undone by turnovers or just by USC being better than them. Nebraska gets a stop, stagnation. Nebraska blocks a field goal down by 1, stagnation. USC had their fair share of difficulties towards the end, but they were always a step ahead of the curve. The Cornhuskers down by 8 would have to have a legacy drive from Raiola to tie the game, but just about every other clutch situation they're into, they Kyle Shanahan in pure Nebraska fashion.
Raiola loads up into the end zone. It is intercepted. Greedy Vance.
Matt Rule was an NFL coach, of the Panthers no less, so this position has come all too familiar with him. How do they keep doing this? The other team constantly gives them chances to change their fate, but they always find a way to blow up in their own face. They've got 2 more chances to rectify this fact, but until they do, they will shower in more 1-score L's. I guess we'll be hearing about how this is the best non-bowl eligible team of all time. Wait a second, I thought Dave Aranda was on the hot seat. Where did he get all of these wins from? Nonetheless, they'd be traveling to the country roads to face the Mountaineers, who also happen to be 1 win away from a bowl. West Virginia would once again switch quarterbacks, with Garrett Greed making a return in place of Nico Marchiol. Baylor decided to stick with Sawyer Robinson, which clearly was the right move. He lit the Mountaineers up like it was Christmas, the 4th of July, or really any other holiday with a lot of lights. While the Mountaineers ran the ball really well against the Bears, Green had his fair share of struggles under the pressure of the Bears' defense. His efforts were good, but nowhere near good enough. Why Green was even still out there is an anomaly within itself. Neil Brown had some momentum going with the fans, but now it's faded again. They no longer trust the climb. They want an Avalanche to just come and wipe the floor clean so they don't have to see him on the sidelines anymore. It's the complete mirror image of Baylor's situation, as he's been Billy Napiered to next season. Sawyer Robinson better get his fair share of NIL because that dude's back has got to be hurting from the carrying. Oh, and by the way, they're going bowling.
All right!
Anyone watching these two teams could have told you that this game was going to be a close one. In fact, some thought the Cox and Cockvember were going to run away with it. These people don't seem to remember that South Carolina goes limp almost every time they face off against Mizzou. The Tigers need about 100 different things to happen for a playoff run, as their strength of schedule is made of Huggies and Care Bears. Although Brady Cook was back and ready to go, his stats are uncomparable to Lenore Sellers, who played like he had knee surgery tomorrow and it would be his last day playing football. After throwing an interception early in the game, he proceeded to paint the stadium in blood as he threw for 5 total touchdowns. In case anyone needs more proof, the Gamecocks are better than the record shows. But while they had a good lead at the half, Missouri had their fair share of dark magic bullshit, and the Cox were usually always the victims of dark magic. As quickly as they had the lead, Theo Weiss and Luther Burden guided the Tigers to take back the lead. Sellers would not go down without a fight though, as he once again led the Cox down the field. Can you believe some people actually said he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the SEC this season? Bro's putting up Connor Shaw stats. It was a great run in Missouri, but you can only escape fate so many times. No amount of magic can save you from Cockvember and the Cock Dome.
Pressure up the middle. Cook lobs it in. It's gone. It's at the bottom. Touchdown Tigers!
I beg your pardon? I don't understand. How do they keep getting away with this? It doesn't add up. None of it does. Sellers would have to lead the Cox down the field in an attempt to tie the game. But wait, I forgot. Despite how fun overtime would be in this game, November must be the rise of Beamer ball.
Got a small defender on him. Shovel pass Sanders. Rocket Sanders dances to the 5. And he punishes his way. South Carolina back in front.
Just like that, Columbia belongs to the Cox again. While South Carolina has the most outward chance of making the playoffs, this will still be remembered as a roller coaster season for the Gamecocks. If there's one constant, it's that there will be no constants. Mizzou gets their third loss, and thankfully all the talk about them making the playoffs can die out. Eli Drinkwitz clearly did not stand on business this time. Loxley, November, you get the idea. What else do I need to say? The uniforms were the only thing different about the performance on the field this month. Billy Edwards threw for a massive amount of yards as per the usual, but inconsistency and stalling out with the football left them with a lot to be desired. It's another episode of the Terps getting a shit ton of yards but never actually doing anything with them. Rutgers had only half the yards, but remember that the game isn't measured by how many yards you get. It's based on how many points. They took much more advantage of the drives they got. Athon Krakatoa was much more consistent, and Kyle Monangai offered a decent run game to go along with it. The Scarlet Knights lost the battle, but won the war. I'm not sure why Loxley is complaining about competing for championships. This team may not even compete for a bowl game, much less make it. Not sure if it's a conditioning issue or something else. Maybe the team is poorly coached or something. I don't know, not sure though, just a thought. You did bother giving Damon Evans an extension for some reason, so something tells me you might be stuck with what you got. Just don't complain when you see an empty stadium every November. As for the Scarlet Knights, they'll come out of the road game with a dub and the 6th win to take them to December.
Alright!
Do the right thing and send your condolences to the Maryland Athletic Department for the help they offered. Like it or not, we are going to be forced to take a more advanced look at the Broncos every week onward until they lose. They control their destiny in the college football playoffs unless they actually blow it. Despite the slow start, they do what they always do and put a heavy reliance on Genty Ball. While it wasn't his best game, he did enough offensively to keep the passing game going well for them. Maddox the Madman was just as lethal in this fight, if not more. Boise certainly put a lot of teams on watch for them after this one. Walker Agette had well over 400 yards passing the football, but through all of their efforts, it still wasn't enough to close the gap on the Broncos. 4 turnovers may or may not have a little something to do with it. The College Ball Nation is holding with bated breath to see if this team will blow it at some point. They've got the easiest road left of any of the remaining group of 5 teams and don't have to play Notre Dame or any of the other highly rated teams. The expectation should be that this team will be meeting with the 5 seed or a first round bye. But this sport is unpredictable. Seeing them blow it would be about as shocking as seeing someone like Tennessee doing it. You will be executed for daring to defy this team. So says the great Cam Skibbity. Returning from the depths of the injury bug, it has no effect on his power. It matters not if you are ranked. He wants your death, and he will get it with a menacing 73 yards. Anyway, Kansas State, despite the performance from Avery Johnson, struggled to get much offensive momentum in the face of the Sun Devil defense. Sam Leavitt proved why Cam Skibbity was such a menace, as if he wasn't doing well, the other one was. Jordan Tyson became the embodiment of the wide receiver core, and the opposition had a little response to counter. They had fully consumed Kansas State by the midway point of the third quarter. Kansas State, forgetting about talent such as Dylan Edwards, sealed their fate and gave them the third loss of the year. Chris Kleeman really is the second coming of Bill Snyder. Having a 3.5 win total in the preseason, the Sun Devils are definitely one of the greater stories of 2024. It took a while, but this win finally propels them into the top 25. Though it is out of their control, one or more favors from the upper deck of the Big 12 could propel this team into the Big 12 title game. I didn't think it would be this close at this point in the season, but here we are. The Big 12 is dangerously close to becoming the new tank conference of this season. One more bad loss by an upper echelon team, and I might have to pull the trigger on it. Well. It's about time. After blitzing through most of the second half schedule, it was only a matter of time until the Ducks hit a struggle. And struggle they did. This is how you know the Ducks are now one with the Big Ten. It's a true Big Ten defensive clinic. A game where the kickers are the best producers of points of the game. Dylan Gabriel struggled in this one, constantly running for his life or getting thrown into a sack or turnover. This game was also proof that Locktober has long been over. Braden Locke struggled to do just about anything a quarterback can do. There was more joy watching the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight, and half the broadcast was just Tyson's ass. Wisconsin would have a lead through most of the game, but eventually the high-end talent would come in clutch and the Ducks would take the lead with minimal minutes left to go. This would force Wisconsin to kick another field goal in order to tie it. However, the Duckies had the ball with 2 minutes left on the clock, so they would kick another field goal to go up by 6.
Oh, it's a fake. James looking to rush for it. And he's going to be short. What in the world?
Or they would fake it for Gits and Shiggles. If that isn't a Dan Lanning masterclass, I'm not sure what is. Any good offense would take advantage of this, but Wisconsin is no such example.
The throw on second down. Lock batted down, picked off! Mateo Uiagalelei seals the deal and keeps Oregon undefeated.
Like I said, Locktober is over, and it has been for a while. The Badgers being so close but so short to glory left a lot of fans angry over the offensive aids put on the field. Contrary to their expectations though, they found a cure, specifically the firing of Phil Longo. This move was long overdue. Pun entirely intended. Oregon moves to 11-0 with the previously explained kryptonite of Dan Lanning being the only thing between them and an undefeated regular season. Somehow surviving this one despite the failures on offense leaves me to believe that the 1 seed has been mostly clinched by the Ducks. This week, on All Out of Seagrams, the Tennessee Volunteers sit on top of the SEC gauntlet somehow. They have been the almighty lords of bullshit. They have somehow manifested win after win by only appearing for one half of football. Georgia's playoff hopes are on life support, with the only hope of defibrillation being Carson Beck's ability to throw the football. It's a play-in game with stakes never higher. Tennessee not only started out strong at the beginning, but got a 10-0 lead over the Bulldogs. Considering Tennessee's offensive incompetence in the first half of games, I practically shit myself seeing it in real time. Bad news, so did the defense. In the one game they couldn't afford to, the Tennessee defense made way for Carson Beck to get his swagger back and shred the defensive backfield. Georgia's receivers suddenly learned how to catch, and if that wasn't enough, ref ball interference on every play imaginable. But Tennessee did have Dylan Sampson, and Nico was making elite throws where he needed to. Additionally, the receivers actually existed. It was a glorious sight to behold. Tennessee had a golden opportunity to relinquish their demons and at the same time relieve the burden upon college football fans of seeing Satan's fanbase incarnate in the college football playoffs. 17-all at halftime, all Tennessee had to do was keep the momentum strong. Can they do it? Of course they can't. Rather than starting the game in the second half, the Vols chose to leave through the buses after the second quarter. The receivers couldn't catch, the defense was playing with one formation all game long, and nobody on the defensive line could get past the Georgia Iron Curtain. Speaking of offensive lines, guess what? More holds and false starts. You get a hold, everybody gets a hold, I hate this team! Georgia, who was thought to be dead in the water, has returned to glory. They went out, they're likely in the college football playoffs now. Despite leaving the game early, Tennessee's loss in Athens still keeps him in the playoff race. The bullshit won't end this soon. Though it is out of their control, Tennessee can still make it in if somehow someone ahead of them loses. Just so we can watch Heupel's offense die for another half of football. If we lose to Vandy, I may actually jump in a pond of still water. I'll admit, I'm a little shocked by this one. With all of Iowa State's hopes and dreams being swept away in the last 2 weeks, I was expecting another letdown at home against the Bearcats. But I guess there is no underestimating the black uniforms under the lights. The Cyclones whipped up about every trick in the book. They had about 19 different people run the football. Cincinnati's defense struggled to keep up. Brendan Sorsby did his part in keeping them in the game with his legs since they forgot how to throw the football. This was when he actually had the ball though. Rocco Becht and the Cyclones controlled the ball through the entire game, taking literal quarters just to get through one drive. For every stagnation on the Bearcats' part, it was another 7 minutes off the clock. It was also a reminder that Scott Satterfield is still employed by them. 3 losses in a row, and all in the same manner. Offensive flopping at the most important points of the game. There will be a significant change needed in order for the Bearcats to compete in the Big 12. Iowa State at least salvages what was left of their season and all but guarantees a decent bowl game that might be able to win. The Salt, if they don't, will be immaculate. Sometimes whenever I pull up these highlights, I take a gamble at whether or not these mid-tier ACC games are going to be on the CW or somewhere else. As you can already tell, both of these teams are blessed with being on a network people can actually watch, I'm pretty sure. This game is all about Omarion Hampton as he feasted on the defensive line like vultures to a roadkill skunk. Hank Bachmeier did his usual Bachmeier things of getting sacked and throwing to ghosts on the field. Despite this, he wasn't exactly terrible. Going into the second half though, he would join the roster of quarterbacks hit by the bug. With Bachmeier out for the game, the Dead Deacons would have to put all of their marbles on Michael Kern. A mixed bag. Sometimes the plays would be good, and then other times...
Kern, throw a pick. Power Eccles. 10-5, touchdown Carolina.
It would be that. A whole lot of that. Thus, as you would expect, whatever slim hope Wake Forest had of winning this one was quickly shut down. Mac Brown is fighting for his 70th year at North Carolina, and you wouldn't be stopping him. Through the efforts of Hampton and Jacoby Criswell, the Tar Heels would replenish their terrible season with the subtle happiness of a bowl. The race to see which coach gets fired first will be an interesting one for sure. But is it time to add Dave Clawson to the list? And what's going to be a terrible year for the Diarrhea Deacons, you really have to wonder how long it's going to be before the patience well gives out. Behold, the lone remnant of the Big 12, playing at a time nobody is paying attention to because everyone is either out partying or asleep on the East Coast. Just like Oregon, the Cougars reached the long-awaited point of a true struggle, but unlike Oregon, this isn't a road test against a winning team. This is Kansas, at home. And credit to the Jayhawks though, they did manage to wipe Iowa State off the playoff map, so it's no surprise they're still hungry after that. At least the defense was. Jalen Daniels was never really able to get much going, but then again, neither could BYU. Jake Retzloff was constantly the victim of pressure and the offensive line struggled to get any separation for the run. It was another hard-fought defensive matchup that would either end in horrible ref ball or incompetence by one or more sides of the football. Here's your spoiler to figure it out.
Casey in motion, Neal on the carry, touchdown Jayhawks. They capitalize on that catastrophic event.
Real men of genius. Were you even looking for the ball? This would of course lead to a score that would put the Jayhawks in the lead. It would all come down to one last drive by the BYU offense. They got bailed out by ref ball last week, but your escape from the grasp of Utah was only delaying the inevitable. Merry Christmas.
For a perfect season. Caught, but short of the first down, and that'll do it. The Jayhawks hold.
Okay, I've changed my mind. The Big 12 now takes the reign of Tank Conference. The worst team in said conference just beat the best. If that doesn't describe the tank of an entire conference, I'm not sure what does. Congratulations to Lance Leopold, who gets a win in desperation mode that keeps the fans satisfied and hopeful for the future. BYU still has their shot at the playoffs, but this loss could be what separates them from a first-round bye. For that, you can go from being the star of the thumbnail to the clown of the week. you might as well declare your independence again. It did wonders for you back then. That's all there was for Week 12. Let's see where the conferences stand now. The Big Ten consists of the Ducks with the top spot as per the usual. Ohio State and Indiana will play this week, which will determine who goes to meet them in the Big Ten title game. Penn State is just happy to be among those entering the playoffs in December. The rest is cannon fodder. The SEC gets more convoluted by the week. Georgia's win over Tennessee keeps them among the 6 best teams with real playoff shots. Everyone except for the Vols now controls their own destiny. South Carolina is also there with the smallest percentage of a playoff bid. Boy, wouldn't that be funny. The new Tank Conference has gone to complete hell. Despite BYU having a higher ranking and a better record, Colorado is now the favorite for the playoff spot. If Cam Skibbity can have a good day this week, this might be curtain call for the Cougars. The ACC is still SMU and Miami. Clemson needs every favor imaginable to slide their way back into the conversation. All they need is for Cristobal to choke, and they might be back into the playoff picture. Until then, though, case closed. Oh, and in case you were curious, Genty Ball runs the group of 5. Shocking revelation, I know. With all that out of the way, here's my Week 13 Top 25. Some new changes are added, and yes, Missouri is no longer there. Not really sure why the playoff poll even pretends they belong. Although I will admit, watching people cry about pretend SEC bias is absolutely comical. Thank you to all of you who are subbed up to the Patreon page, as your support is greatly appreciated as always. Until the next rendition of this absolute shit show, I'll see you next week. Power to Tardaria!
Yeah, go Vols, baby! Go Vols, baby! What'd you say? What'd you say? Hold up. Say it for the camera. What was it? What'd you call me? Yeah. No, what the other thing? What'd you call me? What did you call me before that? You know what? We all heard it. What'd you say?
What are you talking about?
What did you say? We all heard you say it. We all heard you.
Hey, come on.
We all heard you, buddy. Go Vols, baby.
No, seriously, why the f is Missouri still ranked?